Your Excellencies, good morning and welcome to N1.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a privilege to have you here, French ambassador and German ambassador, because it's the 63rd anniversary of the Elizejsk Treaty. Am I right?
You're right, completely.
So, you know what they say, when Paris and Berlin sneeze, the rest of Europe catches a cold. So to begin with, can you please tell me, or whichever once, who called whom first this morning, and what was the topic of your conversation before your first coffee?
Should I start?
Who was the first one?
Well, I mean, there's no first one. As a matter of fact, and it's the same for our leaders, President Macron and Chancellor Merz, namely, we see each other, we call each other all the time. We are basically permanently discussing about different topics. Just to give you an example, on Wednesday morning we were in front of students from the French and German schools to talk about this anniversary and the meaning of this relationship, special relationship that we have developed. And 2 days before, we were again together in Split to open an event called Science Comes to Town, which unites the city of Split, the city of Brest in France, and the city of Kiel in Germany. So we're, basically always together and always discussing.
So you're spending a lot of time together.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, we know how important the cooperation between France and Germany was for the European Union, for Europe as a whole, after the Second World War. And we know that the Elizejsk Treaty was called, to begin with, as a marriage of reason, but you say today that grew into actually love. So, after 63 years, what stage is this marriage in today? How does this marriage look like today?
Well, I think the image of a marriage is perhaps not very precise and it's more anecdotic. I can tell you the secret of the Franco-German couple inside the European Union. It is that France and Germany usually come from very different points of departure. When you put a German in a room and Frenchman in a separate room, in order to solve a problem, you can be sure that the proposals they made will be very different, because we have different traditions, historical traditions, different mindsets and everything. But then, and that's the secret of our relationship and the strength of our relationship, we are not stopping there, but we are continuing to find a common solution. So we are getting together, we are trying to find a compromise. And that solution, because it's a compromise between these two different strains of tradition, is also often acceptable for the other member states of the European Union, because they would not accept a purely German solution or a purely French solution. But if we have transformed it in a Franco-German compromise, bringing elements of both traditions in it, then it becomes acceptable to the others. So you can say that the Franco-German relationship is a machinery to transform disputes into compromise and into results.
So maybe to put it shortly, what you're trying to say is the key to the success is to try and step into the other's shoes and see the world from the other perspective.
Yes.
Now, we are living in a time of what many analysts would say multi-crisis. We are witnessing some of them today. Some would say that we even have possibly the biggest internal crisis in the NATO alliance. Regarding Greenland and regarding Greenland and the visible tensions. So many analysts are asking these days, and we are following what's going on in Davos, if American umbrella, security umbrella, is to break, is the European umbrella, and of course in its main focus is the German and French umbrella, strong enough to be capable to defend Europe and European Union and the European idea?
Well, I think that when we talk about our relation with the United States and how it relates to the security of Europe, We should not forget that this year the United States will celebrate the 250th anniversary of their independence, and as France, we've been their ally from that time. I mean, it's 250 years of alliance, so to say. So this means that we value very much this alliance and this friendship relation we have with the United States, and we want to continue to develop it, definitely. At the same time, we also have to recognize that just as we said between France and Germany, sometimes we come from different positions, different point of views. Sometimes it's not that obvious, and sometimes it becomes more obvious. And we've seen with the administration of President Donald Trump that sometimes now, at least, the new administration wants to push forward very much the interest, the perspective of the United States first. So in this context, I think that already a long time ago, in 2017, President Macron said that Europe had to keep this friendship relation with the United States, but it also had to take care of its business by itself, to invest more in its defense, to invest more in strategic industries, to make sure that it can remain independent and make decisions for its own security by itself. So I think that's one of the things we are trying to do now as Europeans. Again, continue to have serious discussion with the United States and try to find common ground and make sure that, for example, in Ukraine, we continue to fight together to support Ukraine in its war with Russia, but at the same time that European builds all the tools it needs and the capacities also it needs to have this kind of strategic autonomy, this capacity to decide by itself about its own security. And I think that's somehow also something that even the US also expect from us.
Do you think that we've made any improvement since 2017?
Oh yes, I mean it took time. I think in 2017 a lot of people were quite skeptical about what President Macron said, but since 2022, and especially over the past year, if you look at what has been achieved in terms of building new instruments at the European level, like SAFE for joint procurement of armaments by European countries, or for joint research with a tool called EDIP. Sorry for being a little bit technical, but these are things that were maybe unthinkable a few years ago, and that the Europeans have been able to achieve over just the past year.
Now we also know that, yes, please.
Yes, I can only join in on this, very much on the same focus. For Germany, it has always been clear that NATO remains a cornerstone and the cornerstone of European security. So I wouldn't like to have a false opposition, a false dilemma between NATO and European defense. In our view, the European defense is a very important part inside NATO, and you should not create an artificial dilemma about it. I'm very pleased about the latest statement you heard by President Trump yesterday evening, when he said and made clear that he would not use force towards Greenland. In fact, we never expected other things. That's how differences of opinion are treated within NATO. We have to find solutions within NATO. We have to make sure that the deterrence of NATO towards external enemies, and you know about the war of aggression of Russia against Ukraine, is strong and credible, and therefore we have to find ways inside NATO. But as my French colleague, my estimated French colleague, stressed very rightly, the Europeans have to do more. It's true that the Europeans have done not so much over some years. The expenditure for armament was below 2% for a long time. Now it has increased already very much, and it is further increasing. There are the decisions by NATO that every country should spend up to 5% of their GDP on defense and defense-related matters, and we are living up to that commitment. And I'm sure that with that commitment, we will have a very good cooperation in NATO and very efficient deterrence by NATO of external enemies.
So given the fact that Germany is rapidly rebuilding its military, and France remains the only nuclear power in Europe now, with the UK being outside of the European Union, you do believe that Europe will be more capable of taking care of itself, so to say?
It will be, and it is developing these capacities. I'm not speaking of the nuclear issue. The nuclear is nothing for Germany. That's for France to speak about that, because we have the non-proliferation treaty, obviously. But Germany has always been a very strong arm concerning conventional deterrence and conventional forces inside NATO, and we will continue to do so, and we will of course build up these expenditures. As you have seen, our expenditure has already increased and is increasing over the next years to live up to our commitments in NATO.
Now, with everything that's been going on in the world these days, some topics have been pushed slightly more to the side. One of these topics is very important for this part of the world, and that's the EU enlargement. Would you say that there are different opinions or different positions when it comes to EU enlargement in Paris and in Berlin?
I would say not that much now, frankly. And to be frank, I think at some point there were differences. But since 2022, I think that France has made a very clear commitment to supporting the enlargement of the European Union to the Western Balkans, and also now to Ukraine and Moldova. And this is a completely sincere support for enlargement. We see a strategic interest in having those countries in this region join the European Union. And at the same time, of course, it must be also principled. We must make sure that the European Union, when those countries will be able to join, that we are stronger together. This means that those countries have to do all the reforms that, by the way, Croatia did more than a decade ago to meet all the criteria. And on the other side, I think the EU also has to do some reforms to get ready for welcoming those countries and remain efficient. I mean, we are already 27. We may be something like 35 maybe in the future. And so we owe to our citizens to have a European Union that is able to decide, to make sometimes quick decisions, to make strategic decisions, even if we are more around the table. So these are topics that we should continue to discuss in parallel, but very much we are in favor of the enlargement. It's now very clear.
What would be the position of Berlin when it comes to EU enlargement, especially for the countries which are already a little bit further or a little bit closer, but in any matter at the entrance or close to the entrance to the European Union?
Yes, we have always been very committed to the enlargement to all 6 Western Balkan states. And of course, I'm not speaking about Ukraine and Moldova now, which are also coming to that group. I'm concentrating on the Western Balkan issues. So we are very much in favor of it. Of course, the enlargement has always, the countries must be able to access the European Union also, so they have to prepare themselves. That's why we have the Copenhagen criteria that have to be fulfilled. But once these criteria are fulfilled and once the enlargement negotiations can take place in all countries, I'm sure that they will also have the opportunity to join the European Union. And as was stressed by my dear colleague, and our Minister Wadefuhl made it very strongly when he was here for the Ambassadors' Conference. Croatia has a big role to play there, because Croatia is an expert in accession to the European Union. They have you have successfully completed that process. You know how it works, and you can be of great help, I think, to the Western Balkan countries to help them on this process.
Now, would you say that when we talk about maybe some general public opinion in both Germany and France, Is enlargement seen as a strength of the European Union, especially in these circumstances, or a weakness?
It's difficult to say. I think that, to be very frank, currently in France we maybe have a lack of focus of the opinion about this issue. I mean, at the political level, as I've said, the commitment is there, but maybe French public opinion is not really aware of all the reforms that have already been undertaken by countries of the region, how closer they have already come to the standards of the European Union. So we definitely have to have some kind of communication campaign, and also the candidate countries have to do some campaign to promote themselves. I know that a lot of French people visit Croatia as a tourist destination, but I know also that more and more are also going, for example, to Albania, for example. Yeah. And so little by little they will discover how those countries have changed and get a positive opinion of the enlargement and how it can also help stabilize the region.
Is it pretty much the same in Germany?
I think so as well. I mean, it's not a subject the general public would very much be aware of and would very much have studied into already, but the historic examples show how beneficial enlargement has been and accession to the European Union has been to all countries that have acceded to the European Union. You see it with Ireland. Ireland was the poorest country, one of the poorest countries in Europe before accession, and today it's has twice the GDP of per capita of Great Britain. And you saw it with Spain, you saw it with Portugal, you saw it obviously with the Eastern European countries that became member in 2004, and you saw it in a very impressive way with Croatia after they joined in 2013. So if a country joins the European Union, it becomes wealthy and rich. If a country leaves the European Union, it creates problems to them that we see also at the moment. So there's a very strong case in favor of acceding the European Union.
Now, just a quick focus on Croatia. We've already mentioned Croatian tourism, which is probably by far the best known product which Croatia is selling to both France and Germany. But apart from sun and the sea and coastline, what is interesting for France and Germany when it comes to Croatian economy and investing in Croatia?
Shall I start? Well, I think obviously now that, again, Croatia is within the European Union, it's within Schengen zone, it's within the Eurozone. So it means that doing business in Croatia has become very easy in a way for our companies. And you have a growing market, population that is more wealthy, skilled workforce, again, implementing European standards. So Croatia can become not only a market as itself, but also some kind of gateway also to the region of Southeastern Europe. And I see more and more French companies who establish headquarters for the so-called Adriatic or Southeastern Europe region, for example, in Zagreb or somewhere in Croatia. And at the same time, I think also we should remember that being part of the European Union, it creates also opportunities for Croatian companies to develop their business also in France and in Germany, which are obviously quite big markets. So I think it's a really win-win situation.
German perspective?
Yes, just one figure, 13%. That's by 13% that exports from Croatia to Germany have grown last year. And this shows the economic potential of our relationship, our economic relationship. Of course, tourism is important and will remain important, but in our view, it would be dangerous to depend too much on tourism. That's why we, as an embassy, but also as the German economy in general, we want to enlarge the possibility, the areas of cooperation between Germany and Croatia, like for instance mechanical and electrical engineering. Automotive components have been a very important element. Now we have a defense industry that becomes a more and more important element. We spoke about it previously already, how important investment in defense industry has become. And so as we had this very close cooperation in the past with Croatia and the German automotive industry, I'm sure we can build a very strong relation between Croatia and the German defense industry that is growing rapidly. We have energy infrastructure and shipbuilding. We have maritime engineering, logistics and transport networks. So we have a lot of opportunities to develop. And especially renewable energy is an area where Croatia has an enormous potential that has to be tapped further.
So to come back to go back at the beginning and the special relation between France and Germany, just a couple of quick questions. Beer or wine? Or both?
Yeah, I would say both, because I think Pascal would agree with me that, of course, there's this stereotype that French people drink wine, German people drink beer. But actually, in both countries, we produce both wine and beer, and we drink both wine and beer.
Yeah.
And actually, that's something that we have in common with Croatia, I would say also.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, beer, there's 1664, the beer from Strasbourg that we drink always, which is a French one. There's very good German wine, and I'm really a promoter of German wine. So if you come
especially in German South.
In the German South and middle, I would say, even to Saxony. If you come to the residence, you will be served a German wine, which I cherish very much. I'm also coming from a wine-growing region, Mosel, Saar, Ruwer. Saarland is producing wines as well, especially very good Rieslings, very good Pinot Noirs. So I would recommend the German wines.
My final question, the best Croatian or your most beloved Croatian word that you have learned so far?
Živieri is nice, relating to wine and beer. Živieri.
Hvala.
Well, regarding that, thank you, Excellency, so much for being our guests and sharing your thoughts and perspectives with us.
Thank you very much
for
hosting us.